All right, so are you ready to dive into another city deep dive?
Absolutely, I am. Where are we headed today?
This time we are headed to the Pacific Northwest to Portland, Oregon.
Portland.
Hmm.
Okay, cool. I think a lot of people probably have some preconceived notions about Portland.
Yeah, Portland, it's known for a lot of things, right? It's got that Pacific Northwest vibe, lots of nature. It's known for being a bit quirky, a bit hipstery.
Right. And the coffee.
Oh, yeah.
The coffee. Definitely the coffee.
But like all these best cities lists, we always say they never tell the whole story, right?
Never just the highlights.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going deeper this time, way beyond those like top 10 lists we always see. We want to give you the real deal about Portland.
Mhm.
The good, the bad, and those uniquely Portland quirks.
And to do that, we've got a great source this time. Someone who's actually lived in Portland for over 30 years.
Yeah, this is where the deep dive part really comes in. Our source today is a blog post from Oregon Essential called 20 Honest Pros and Cons of Living in Portland, Oregon, plus tips.
Okay, 20 pros and cons. So this person clearly has some thoughts on Portland.
Oh, yeah, and they do not hold back. They lay it all out there, the good, the bad, the things that'll make you want to pack your bags, and the things that make you say, Portland's got it going on.
I like it.
Mm.
So where do we even begin with a list like that?
Well, this blogger doesn't just list things out randomly. They actually connect the dots between the pros and cons and how they kind of play off each other.
So it's like a more holistic view of Portland,
Yeah,
not just a checklist of good and bad things.
exactly. So let's jump into some of those pros because Portland does have a lot going for it. One thing that immediately caught my eye was no sales tax.
Oh, that's always nice on the wallet, especially for those bigger purchases.
Right. Imagine buying a new laptop or phone without that extra sales tax chunk added on.
Yeah, that definitely adds up. But hold
Yeah.
on, Oregon makes up for it in other ways, right? Like income tax.
True. There's always a trade-off.
Yeah.
And the blog actually goes into detail about Oregon's income tax brackets, which we won't get lost in right now, but it's worth checking out if
I
you're
know.
thinking about crunching those numbers.
Yeah, good point. Got to look at the whole picture. So besides the tax situation, what else stood out to you?
Well, another major plus is Portland International Airport. It consistently ranks really high, like one of the best airports in the U.S.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one, especially for people who travel frequently, whether it's for work or leisure.
Huh.
Nobody wants to deal with a stressful airport experience.
Yeah, exactly. And this blogger really emphasizes how much smoother traveling is when you have a well-designed, efficient airport.
So no stressful layovers or anything?
Nope. Direct flights, easy navigation, it can make a huge difference. Now let's talk about Portland's vibe. Those distinct neighborhoods, the unique character of the city.
Yeah, you don't get that cookie-cutter suburbia feel in Portland, do you? It's much more about individuality.
Exactly. And the blogger really emphasizes how walkable Portland is. You can stroll through all these different neighborhoods, each with its own personality and vibe.
Mhm.
It's the opposite of urban sprawl.
It sounds charming. And speaking of Portland's environment, you know what caught my attention? It's supposed to be surprisingly allergy-friendly.
Really, I did not know that.
Yeah, the blogger mentions it. They say Portland's climate and the way it's situated actually make it pretty easy on allergy sufferers.
Wow, that's a hidden gem right there. Who knew? So already we're seeing a different side of Portland.
Right, going beyond the stereotypes.
Okay, so we've been talking up Portland's good side, but like any city, it's got its share of challenges. And this blogger does not shy away from the tougher stuff.
Nope, they get real about it.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest challenges they highlight is homelessness.
Yeah, that's something you hear about a lot with Portland.
Right, and the blogger really gets into the complexity of it. It's not just about the numbers, it's about the human impact and the different perspectives within the city itself.
What do you mean by different perspectives?
Well, you've got some residents who are pushing for more resources and support systems for those experiencing homelessness, right?
Okay, that makes sense.
But then you have others who are feeling increasingly frustrated and honestly scared.
Yeah, the blogger even shares some personal anecdotes about encountering drug use right outside their apartment and at the grocery store.
Exactly. It's like these aren't just abstract issues playing out in the news. They're part of daily life in Portland.
It really highlights that tension a lot of cities are facing trying to balance progressive values with these complex social challenges.
It's a tough balance to strike for sure. Now, speaking of a delicate balance, let's talk about housing costs in Portland.
Yeah, that's the one that always makes me nervous when I hear about a new city.
And for good reason. The blogger drops a pretty shocking comparison here. A house they bought for $60,000 30 years ago is now worth over $930,000.
Wait, $930,000? Are you serious?
Yep, that's what they said. Talk about sticker shock.
Whoa, that's insane. I know the housing market has been crazy everywhere, but that's a whole other level.
Right. And While Portland might still be relatively affordable compared to like San Francisco or Seattle, it's definitely not the haven it used to be.
So those dreams of snagging a charming Portland home for a steal are pretty much dashed.
It's tough, especially for millennials and newcomers trying to break into that market.
Yeah, that's a common theme we're seeing across a lot of these cities. And speaking of themes, here's one for those who love sunshine. Brace yourselves for those gray winters in Portland.
Ah, yes, the infamous gray skies. The blogger talks about how those gray days can really drag you down, even contributing to seasonal affective disorder.
SAD, I've heard of that. It's like a real mood killer, right?
It can be, especially if you're sensitive to those changes in daylight. The blogger does offer some take, though, like using a happy light to simulate sunlight.
Interesting. So it's manageable.
Potentially,
Yeah.
but definitely something to be aware of. Now, even if you can handle the gray days, making new friends in Portland might take some extra effort.
Oh, how so?
Well, the blogger describes Portlanders as friendly but reserved, which is an interesting combination.
I've heard that before about Pacific Northwesterners in general.
Right, like are they welcoming you with open arms or are they keeping you at arm's length? It seems like there's a strong sense of community among longtime Portlanders, but
Yeah.
it might take a while to penetrate that.
Okay, so maybe not the easiest place to be the new kid on the block. And what about diversity? The blogger mentions that too.
Yeah, they're pretty upfront about it, actually. They acknowledge that Portland has a ways to go in becoming a truly inclusive and diverse city, especially when it comes to ethnicity.
That's important to point out. And let's not forget about the elephant in the room, traffic.
Right. All this growth and appeal means more cars on the road.
Gridlock galore.
Pretty much. The blogger actually calls out Portland's infrastructure, saying it's struggling to keep up with the influx of new residents.
So those scenic bike paths might be packed too.
Could be. And here's one that might surprise you, the lack of air conditioning in many homes.
Really, I'm from the South, so AC is like a non-negotiable for me.
I hear you. The blogger's husband is from the South, too, and he was totally thrown by this. Apparently, many older homes in Portland weren't built with AC because summers used to be milder.
Makes sense, but times are changing.
Exactly. With those recent heat waves, it's definitely something to consider if you're thinking of moving there.
Wow, so even Portland's climate is changing things up. And the blogger also touches on the city government, which seems to be a bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah, they paint a picture of a city grappling with some big challenges, homelessness, the fentanyl crisis, you name it. And while they acknowledge the government is trying to address them, there's a sense that some residents feel like it's not enough or not fast enough.
It's like that everywhere, though, right? Trying to find solutions that work for everyone is a tough job.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that even in a place as seemingly idyllic as Portland, there are real struggles and differing opinions on how to solve them.
So we've really gone deep on Portland, haven't we? We've seen the good, the not so good, all those little details that make a place what it is.
Right. It's like we've peeled back the layers of that best city veneer
Yeah,
and gotten to the real Portland.
exactly. And one thing that really stuck with me was how the blogger described Portland as being at a crossroads.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. Like, it's trying to figure out what it wants to be.
Yeah, between the changing landscape, a new city government trying to find its footing, and all these different opinions on where Portland's headed, it's a city in flux.
Definitely. And you can really see that reflected in the comment section of the blog post.
Oh, yeah, tell me about it. It's like a microcosm of the whole city, right?
Totally. You've got these diehard Portlanders who wouldn't dream of living anywhere else. They're fiercely loyal to their city.
Right, through sick and thin.
Exactly. But then you've also got those who are just over it, They're disillusioned, frustrated, and ready to pack their bags.
And it's interesting because both sides have valid points.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole deep dive so fascinating. There's no single Portland experience. It really comes down to individual priorities and perspectives.
So true. It's like what might be a deal breaker for one person is just a quirky quirk for another.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for you listening out there, it all boils down to what matters most to you.
Right. What are your non-negotiables in a city? What are you willing to compromise on?
Think about it this way. If you were packing your bags tomorrow, what would your top 3 must-haves in a city be?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right? Does Portland, with everything we've talked about, still check those boxes for you?
That's the million-dollar question. And I think that's a perfect note to wrap up this deep dive on.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It really has. We've gone way beyond those surface level rankings and really gotten into the nitty-gritty of life in Portland.
We've explored its allure, its challenges, its quirks and complexities.
All those things that make it such a unique and frankly fascinating place.
And at the end of the day, that's what these deep dives are all about. equipping you with the knowledge and perspectives to make your own informed decisions.
Exactly. So as you go about your day, maybe mull over those three must-haves we talked about. Does Portland fit the bill, or is there another city calling your name? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And hey, who knows? Maybe your questions will inspire our next deep dive. Until then, happy exploring, everyone.